Hey guys, welcome back. It's Neon. We're going to talk about Disneyland and Star Wars Galaxy's Edge again. The reason I'm going to do another video on this is that there is photographic evidence that Galaxy's Edge is really empty. People did not believe us when we told them that Disneyland and Galaxy's Edge was empty, despite multiple media outlets reporting on the emptiness of Disneyland, showing photographic evidence, videos. We even had our friend Aaron Sparrow was out there last week. He put a video up and showed you exactly how empty Galaxy's Edge was. So now a couple of Arizona newspapers are giving you some aerial photographs of Galaxy's Edge, and you can see how empty this place is for yourself. This coming from Arizona Central. Fewer crowds at Disneyland Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Aerial images offer evidence. All right, we're going to take a closer look at these photographs. Just bear with me here. So many have noted how attendance this summer at Disneyland seems lighter than anticipated with the opening of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. And recent photos of the park taken from high above offer some anecdotal proof. The overhead shots taken by aerial imagery specialist NearMap offer a unique perspective on the buildings and crowds, or lack of crowds. NearMap also released aerial photographs in February. Just as construction was near an end, the presence of people in the latest batch presents a better sense of scale. Yeah, it's a big place, and it's really freaking empty. Guests and Disney-dedicated bloggers have noted how Disneyland has been less crowded than usual, and while the overhead photos taken on July 4th, according to NearMap, seem to prove it, they do record just one moment in time. Last week, Disney announced the second ride will not open until January. And yeah, people are pissed about that too. I've been out to Disney blogs where people said they were booking trips to Disneyland for mid-December, thinking both attractions were going to be open, and they're not going to be open. So let's look at how busy Galaxy's Edge is, because we have Disney apologists coming in and lecturing us, telling us that we're wrong, telling us that we've got our facts wrong, that Galaxy's Edge is doing fine. It's doing fine. There are plenty of people in Galaxy's Edge. So you can see how big Galaxy's Edge is. It's like 14 acres. But you can also see how few people we have walking around Galaxy's Edge. I mean, look, over at the Falcon ride even, there's not a whole lot of people. Here we go again. Again, not a lot of people. Disneyland sometimes is wall-to-wall people. Compare this to an average day in Pandora in Walt Disney World. Look at this. It's like hardly anybody here. This is like an early morning stroll around Disneyland before it gets busy. This is on the 4th of July. A lot of people go to the parks for the 4th of July to watch the fireworks. It's just not busy at all. Look at this. So you tell me how busy is Galaxy's Edge? Not very busy. So again, you know, everybody's like, oh my God, you're blowing this out of proportion. Nearly every theme park blog, every Disney blog out there, save for the ones that are clearly bought and paid for by Disney, or they're trying to make sure they stay in Disney's good graces, are talking about the elephant in the room, which is Disneyland not being busy, Galaxy's Edge not being the draw that Disney expected it to be. This one coming from Theme Park Insider, which is a pretty reputable site. Robert Niles, why does attendance seem to be down at Disneyland this summer? And he talks about how people were waiting for Galaxy's Edge, and it did not hit like it was supposed to. He says he's lost count of the number of people who have asked, emailed, or messaged him about what's going on at Disneyland. With the new Star Wars Galaxy's Edge land, Disneyland braced itself for record-setting crowds by raising ticket prices and annual pass prices and remaking the pathways around the park to both reduce the size and improve the flow of crowds, but the crowds never came. They never came. Instead, Disneyland Resort visitors have been enjoying some of the shortest wait times in years. I've heard decades. Increased capacity with the addition of a new ride and locations inside Galaxy's Edge have helped to dilute the crowd levels, but attendance clearly appears to be down across the resort this summer. The observed decreases in wait times and crowd sizes throughout the Disneyland and California Adventure parks are simply too significant to pass off as the result of adding one new ride and a few food and beverage locations in Galaxy's Edge, Why did this happen? Why the biggest, most expensive expansion in the history of the original theme park lead to fewer people visiting? Now, he does go on to say that he does not believe anyone should be laying the blame for reduced crowds solely upon Galaxy's Edge. He says that Galaxy's Edge failed to entice enough people to overlook Disneyland's price increases and to come anyway, the way that Disneyland just assumed many fans would do. Basically, Disney jacked the prices, thinking that everybody was going to come for Star Wars, even though the park was only really half open. They were missing one of the rides, and it failed miserably. Star Wars is not a big enough draw to bring people to Disneyland if the prices are too high. He talks about the price increases. In January, Disneyland raised one-day, one-park summer ticket prices by 10%, annual pass prices from 10 to 22%. That followed the resort last year, implementing expanded blackout dates for Disneyland versus California Adventure. For years, Disneyland has been raising its ticket and annual price passes while attendance continued to rise at both parks. Yeah, they were just like, oh, people are going to keep paying. They're going to keep paying. They just did this at Disney World. They jacked up the annual passes at Disney World, something like 25%. I mean, eventually it's going to get to the point where people aren't going to pay it anymore. The market was telling Disneyland that it could keep raising ticket prices and people would keep coming to the parks. So if Disneyland wanted to use a price increase to limit the crowds into what it expected to be its biggest hit in years, then it needed to get super aggressive with those price increases. So Disneyland did, and apparently overshot the mark. They projected across the galaxy. They overshot. Is this a rejection of Galaxy's Edge? Perhaps in part, but other factors have contributed to it. Yeah, it's a combination of things. I mean, Disney thought Galaxy's Edge was going to be this massive, massive hit, on par with Harry Potter and Universal, not realizing that, like, look, if you jack the prices too, Star Wars is not a big enough draw. Star Wars is not a big enough draw to make people pay through the nose to come to Disneyland. And then we get to the bottom where he talks about ultimately the failure to attract a lot of guests this year falls in part on Galaxy's Edge. Earlier in the year, he wrote 2 contrasting posts about the project, why Disney's Star Wars Land will be the biggest theme park hit ever, and why Disney's Star Wars Land won't be the big hit people expect. Now that the land is open, I'm hearing more complaints about the lack of original characters, unfamiliar world building, and frustrating interactivity than I am hearing praise for the land's build quality, opportunities for interactivity, and opening up of the Star Wars universe. Ultimately, it seems to me that most people like Galaxy's Edge, but too few love it. At least not enough of them love it to create the critical mass of fans that drives people to say, to heck with the cost and just plan a visit. And honestly, one simple change probably could have salvaged this. And a lot of commenters have agreed with us. If they had based this on the original trilogy, if it had been Mos Eisley, if it had been Endor, if it had been Hoth, if Darth Vader were walking around in the original trilogy stormtroopers, I think people would have been far more inclined to check that out than some random planet that's never been in the movies, that's only been mentioned in the books, that features a bunch of new characters that nobody gives a shit about. You know, you're not going to pay through the nose for that. With Harry Potter and Universal, you're literally walking into the movies that you know and love, and people expected the same thing for Star Wars, and that's not what they got. And I really have to wonder if at some point Disney isn't going to retheme Galaxy's Edge to original trilogy, because that is where the money is. You look at what merchandise is selling now, what drum they keep hitting when you go to the parks. It's original trilogy merchandise. In fact, they've seemingly given up on a lot of the sequel merchandise. I know the Solo merchandise sort of rotted in Disney park stores. It seems more and more like Disney is going back to original trilogy product because that's what sells. They really should have waited to see how the second movie in the sequel trilogy played out before investing so heavily into a themed land based almost entirely on the sequel trilogy. Not a very smart move, and it looks like they're paying for it. And it's affecting the rest of Disneyland too. Look at the hub. Look how sparse the crowds are. This is crazy. This is not Disneyland during July. There should be 3 to 4 times as many people easily. So we're going to wrap this one up. Thanks so much for watching. We're going to keep an eye on this situation with Galaxy's Edge and Disneyland. And I'm really curious to see what happens in Disney World. I do think it is going to be received much better in Disney World because Disney World is more of a tourist destination. People come from all over the world to go to Disney World. I think Galaxy's Edge will be sufficiently popular there, but I don't think it's going to drive trips the way Disney thought it would. People aren't going to book a trip just to go see Galaxy's Edge, but they'll be there for sure to ride the rides because, you know, hey, it's a new ride. You can base a new ride on literally anything in Disney World, and people are going to come see it. But yeah, Galaxy's Edge, not the slam dunk Disney was hoping. This is not going to drive traffic to the parks. It's just going to be an additive thing, and people will be like, yeah, we went to go see Star Wars. It was okay. Let's go ride Pirates of the Caribbean. Hey guys, thanks for watching Clownfish TV. Please consider supporting the channel. Go to clownfishsupport.com. That's clownfishsupport.com. And if you want to join our community, go to clownfishtalk.com. That's clownfishtalk.com. Please subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. We will talk to you next time.